Fall is here, and today we are gonna do my September wrap up. So for the month of September, I read 11 books. Most of them are spooky books with a few other things sprinkled in. We had some cozy mysteries, we had a slasher, we had just a bunch of different stuff. The first thing I read was I Was a Teenage Slasher by Stephen Graham Jones. And this book to me, it kind of felt like a think piece on being a slasher, because you get to see stuff from these slashers' perspective about how they became a teenage slasher and all this. And so it follows these two friends in Texas, and it was a summer in the 90s that they will never forget, and neither will their small town in Texas. When I went into it, it wasn't exactly what I was expecting, and I think I like that about it. And you get to see like the weird things, and like kind of like it follows along with sort of explaining the tropes of like what being a slasher is, and like stuff that happens in like the movies, you know, no matter if the slasher has like a bum leg or there's something in their shoe and they're dragging their leg as they walk, but like the logic is they just go faster. Because in the movie, like, you know, the victim's running and they're just like walking along slowly, but somehow they get there faster. And just different stuff, like how there's always boobs and slashers and all kinds of stuff like that. And I thought it was a lot of fun to read. If you like slasher books, if you like Stephen Graham Jones, you would probably enjoy this book. So after that, I read a cozy mystery called Murder at the Pumpkin Pageant by Darcy Hannah, and I've been going down a rabbit hole of reading cozy mysteries, and every time I see one at the library, I pick them up. And this one had a dog on the cover, and it sounded cute, and it's super cute. So there's this lady, she runs a bakery, and she also owns a haunted lighthouse. What happens is her friend has been staying with her for a while, and she's like an influencer. And unbeknownst to the woman who owns the lighthouse and bakery, her influencer friend invited some dudes from a TV network that's like has a big ghost hunting show to come and investigate the lighthouse. You know, the bakery owner, she's kind of protective of her ghost and is not really quite okay with this, but eventually she does relent and they do the investigation. Something happens, they freak out. The one influencer girl runs out the back door of the lighthouse and runs into a dead body. And then the mystery commences. And there's lots of pumpkin-y, delicious things mentioned in it too. And there's recipes in the back for a bunch of yummy pumpkin stuff and other things as well. So after that, I read this book called The Night the River Wept by Lo Patrick. And this book I have described as Legally Blonde meets grumpy old men, and then they go solve a cold case murder. That's the book. There's a cold case murder about these three boys who were killed by the river. They lived on the wrong side of the tracks. This lady, she's bored. Her husband makes a ton of money, so she's so bored she decides she's gonna find a job, and she gets a job at the local police station, and she's basically just tagging evidence. And it's a small kind of little town, and the police there don't really care if she goes through the files. So she has a lot of downtime, so she starts going through all the files. And she finds this one cold case about these three dead boys, and I think it's like 20 years old or something like that. She's a well-off housewife who's in her, I think like, later 20s. She's real pretty. She's got that Elle vibe from Legally Blonde. And so you have that, and then you have the other secretary who works there, and then this other lady who had been a family friend of some of the people that were involved in the case where the three boys ended up found dead. Those two women are grumpy as crap. They kind of hate each other, and they're super like grumpy old men. So you put that all together and you have a cold case murder story, but it doesn't take itself too seriously, and yet it's serious at the same time. I flew through it. I could see how people wouldn't like it because it doesn't take itself too seriously, but it was kind of a fun read. So if you like the description that I gave it, you might just enjoy it. All right, so after that, we read The Woman in the Mirror by Rebecca James. And I saw this over on Mother Horror's Instagram, and she said it was like a atmospheric gothic fiction, and it is. It is moody and strange. This woman takes a job taking care of these children of this rich man, and the man had like he had been in the war, so he had some disfigurement on his face and whatnot. There was a prior nanny, but they don't really talk about where she went. Like, she just kind of like disappeared, and it seems there are sinister undertones of stuff happening here and there. And at first, the children, they seem all peachy and amazing and lovely, but then things take a darker turn, and the nanny starts to see what she didn't quite see before. And I thought it was a great read. I like the atmosphericness of it. I like the darkness of the story and the twists and turns that it took. All right, so after that, I read Through the Midnight Door by Katrina Monroe. This is a haunted house story, and it follows 3 sisters. When they were kids, they would go and explore all these abandoned places because they were kids and they didn't have a whole lot to do. And one time they were all hanging out, and this weird ruffian boy pops up. And the older sister was gonna like kick his butt. But then he's like, hey, wait, what if I show you guys someplace cool? And he takes them to this haunted house where they go in, and the sisters all each go in their own room, and some messed up crap happens. And it seems like this darkness follows them home and follows them throughout their lives. And they're never really quite sure how to get rid of it. So do they? I don't know, you have to read the book. It's absolutely fantastic. I loved it. It's very dark and disturbing. It's an intensely gripping book because like as soon as I started reading it, I was pulled right into the story, and I really liked it quite a bit. I have a standalone review for that one, so I will link that down below if you want to check that out. And especially just in time for spooky season if you're looking for a good haunted house story. All right, next up we had Book 6 of The Dark Tower, Song of Susanna. I don't know if you have read this series, but each book gets progressively weirder and weirder, and I absolutely love it. It has been such an interesting and fun and weird journey. This book, we follow our characters of Susanna and Jake, Oy the Bumbler, Roland and Eddie, and Father Callahan, because his fate has been super intertwined with these people. Father Callahan is from Salem's Lot, and Salem's Lot, the book, kind of comes into play in this whole series too. So anyways, Susanna, they just fought this crazy battle. Susanna's pregnant with this possible demon baby, and she goes through this door, which is a portal to another dimension, with this other personality that kind of took her over named Mia, because she needs to go have this demon baby in New York City in the year 1999. And Roland and Eddie and Jake and Father Callahan, they need to, 1, go after her to save her, and 2, they have to go find this guy Calvin Tower so that they can purchase this lot that the Rose, which is the Dark Tower, is on, so that they can protect it. And it's the adventure continuing on of that. And I don't want to get too deep into it. I have a whole playlist of these videos up until Song of Susanna, so if you're interested in checking that out, I'll link that down below in the darkness. After that, I read the book The Unmothers. And the premise of this book is, did a teenage boy have sex with a horse? Did he? The premise is that a horse gives birth to a human baby. At least that's the possible news story that this reporter is sent to go follow up on in this little town. She doesn't really think there's going to be anything to it. Little does she know, as she gets deeper and meets the people of the town, there are some stranger and very mysterious things going on here. It's a very Lynchian type book. I loved it. It's so effing weird. Did this kid have sex with a horse? Who knows? You'll have to read the book to find out. Like I said, it's freaking weird. It's Lynchian. And there might be something strange and ancient in the woods. Is it Bigfoot? I don't know. Maybe. So after that, we read Piglet by Lottie Hazel. This book just made me sad for this woman's life. She thought she was marrying like the perfect man. She came from a family that didn't have a ton of money, and so she meets this guy. He's super rich, and she thinks she's gonna have this great life, and she wants to look good in front of her peers. And it's a sad story because it takes her the whole book to realize that wanting all this illusion that wasn't even real, and being able to like be happy with herself and where she came from, like how she wasn't able to do that, and instead she's like trying to fill this void, and then she just starts eating a lot of food. And I usually like books with food descriptions, but in this book it was disgusting. Like I was so disgusted with all the food descriptions, and a lot of times they would talk about like eating like was it like pork or something with like the cracklings and dripping, the fat from people's lips glistening, and it was gross. So make of that what you will. I don't know. I read the whole thing, so something in it kept me reading. I guess maybe it's like watching a train wreck. You're just like, how is it possible that the character just wants herself to stay stuck in this situation? Because you come into it, she's getting married in a somewhat short amount of time, and she finds out that they never really say what happened, but it's pretty sure like her fiance cheated on her. You gotta assume that's what it is. And she decides she's gonna tough it out and get married anyway because she doesn't want anyone to know. She, holds herself to a higher standard, and she wants to have the house and all the fancy things and blah, 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 blah. And that's why it's just so depressing. It's like, girl, get the F out of Dodge. Once a cheater, always a cheater. And you just stuffing your face through all this is not gonna make anything better until finally, on the last minute, she snaps. But like, it took her all the way over the finish line. And that was what was so depressing. And it's like, you know what? So many people probably do that too. That sucks. And it made me sad. I didn't like it. Other people might like that book. I don't know. I didn't like it because it was badly written, because it wasn't. It was written well, and I read the whole thing through because, like I said, it was like watching a train wreck, but it just made me like so depressed about this person's life. And I'm like, it's not a feel-good book. Even when like she finally breaks out of the spell, and the food descriptions were gross. Anyways, am I selling this to you? Probably not. All right, I'm gonna move on now. After that, I read a book that was absolutely delightful and I loved it. It's called Apple Cider Slaying by Julie Ann Lindsay. This one has 2 cats in it. Their names are Kenny Rogers and Dolly, and they're super cute. They're not like huge players in this book, but they're in there, and they're always attacking the main character out of nowhere. She loves them. They're cute. So anyways, the main characters are Granny Smith and her granddaughter, Winnie. The grandfather had passed away like 3 years ago. So when that happened, Granny Smith kind of went through, the stages of grief. There was a lot of things that the grandpa did at the orchard that she wasn't really sure about. So a lot of things fell through the cracks. And at this point in time, she is financially struggling very bad, where the orchard may shut down if they can't figure out a way to turn this around. So the granddaughter takes upon herself to try to save the orchard. And to bring in more business and more money, she decides, they used to always close in the fall, but she wants to do Christmas at the orchard and have events and do stuff like that. And she wants to open up a cider shop so that she can sell products from there and whatnot and make an income like all year round, which will help to save the orchard and the farm and all that. So they're having an event. There's a bunch of people there. And the neighbor, Nadine Cooper, who is like Granny's arch nemesis, and pretty much everyone else's arch nemesis too, because everyone hates her. She's always in everyone's business. She's always like blah, 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 and is really annoying and up in everyone's face, and is always fighting with everyone. So she storms onto the property and she's like, Winnie, where's your grandmother? I need to talk to her, blah, 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 just being a big pain in the butt. She's like, Granny's not here right now. She just took a bunch of people on a tractor on a tour of the farm, so come back later, I guess? I don't know. So she storms off. And then the guy that is from the bank, she's trying to get a loan so she can get the money to open up the cider place. He comes and she's showing him around the property. And they go to this area where she's going to show him where the cider press is. And they go in there and they find Nadine Cooper dead in the cider press. And this sets off a murder mystery. I love the characters. I loved the mystery of it. I liked that it was super cute and cozy, and it just had a great story. It was an addictive read, and it has a recipe in the back for how to make your own apple cider at home, which I didn't know you could do. You just need a crock pot and apples, obviously, and some cinnamon and a bunch of other stuff. But it seems fairly easy to do, so I'm gonna try to do that at some point. If you're looking for a great cozy mystery with kind of like a Christmassy theme, Apple Cider Slaying's awesome, and I think there's 2 other books in the series. This is the first one in the series. Super fun. Okay, so after that, I read the best, coziest, witchy fall read. I should have read it sooner. Cackle by Rachel Harrison. I loved it so much. So it follows the story of Annie, and her boyfriend of 10 years breaks up with her. She thought they were gonna get married. She's pretty devastated. They've decided to stay friends. Not always the best idea, but she can't afford to live in New York City anymore. So she's gonna move to this small town where she got a job, and it's in upstate New York. and she's gonna move to this small town and then commute to her new job, which is, I think, not too far away. So she goes to this small town, and oh, before she goes, on her birthday, it's like her 30th birthday, her and this lady from work, Nadia, they go out, and they had gone to the bars, and after they left the bars, they were trying to find this pizza place. Well, instead they find this psychic, and Nadia like drags her in there to go get her fortune told, to get their palms read. And when she gets her palm read, the fortune teller like freaks out and is like, no, all I see is darkness. I don't see anything else, nothing but darkness. And she's like, what? So that doesn't make her feel really good. And she just got dumped, so, you know, her life seems to be falling apart. And for Nadia, the fortune teller was like, oh, you're gonna meet the love of your life in the next month. His name won't be his name and all this fun stuff and da-da-da-da-da. So there's that. So anyways, she gets to this cute little town. And she's feeling sad and kind of dejected and depressed and alone. So she goes to the liquor store, you know, because she wants something to drink. So she goes there and she meets this woman, Sophie. And Sophie is like the most beautiful woman ever. And she's like, you need this Bordeaux. She gives her a bottle of Bordeaux. She's like, no, don't pay for it. Just, it's on me. Welcome to town. You know, would you like to go get some coffee at the farmer's market this weekend? We'll chat, da-da-da-da. And she's like, okay, yeah, because, you know, she doesn't have any friends, and this beautiful woman just invited her to come have coffee with her. So she goes, and her and Sophie start to become really good friends. But Sophie wants her to, like, learn how to be happy by herself and realize she doesn't need to have a man or depend on anyone else, and like be comfortable in her own skin and be free. Annie just can't seem to break out of that. Like, Sam still has her on a leash. Like, he keeps her on the hook, just keeps reeling her back in. And it's about finding your inner strength, breaking that stronghold, finding out who you are and being able to love yourself and realize what you really want, instead of stop trying to shove yourself into a box to please someone else when they should be trying to please you because you're amazing. You know, it's such a cute, cozy read. It's awesome. It has a great message. I freaking loved it. I cannot recommend it enough. If you haven't read Cackle, if you like Rachel Harrison, she's a freaking doll, go get this book and read it. It's the perfect fall read, I swear. And if you don't think it is, I'm sorry, but it is. After that, I read The Hitchcock Hotel by Stephanie Roble. And this book is kind of like, if you ever played the game Clue, whether the board game or you played it online or saw the movie that's like super old with Tim Curry, it is a whodunit. At first I thought it was gonna be like a haunted house story. I was like, oh, Hitchcock Hotel, I kind of got that vibe. It follows this main character, Alfred. His namesake is Alfred Hitchcock, and growing up, like, that was what him and his mom kind of bonded over, was they would watch Hitchcock movies together. When he grew up, he ended up buying this house on the hill, and he converted it into a Hitchcock-themed hotel. And so he wants to have his old friends from college come and stay there for, like, this weekend and, you know, catch up and show him the hotel and this, that, and the other. But it seems that something had happened their last year of college, because they were all really great friends, and then it all fell apart somewhere along the way. And we're not sure what happens, and you don't really find out until about maybe like halfway through the book you start to find out. But then you also find out the friends all have all this weird hidden baggage and effed up stuff too that some of them were part of, and the things that they're going through and stuff in life. At some point, somebody ends up dead, and then it's a whodunit. Was it Colonel Mustard in the conservatory with the candlestick? It was none of those things. You'll have to read the book to find out, because it was not Colonel Mustard. He wasn't in that. There was no candlestick, and there's no conservatory, but, you know, you get the gist of it. I think my two favorites were Cackle. Cackle was the #1. And a close second was Song of Susanna in the Dark Tower series. Those two were my faves. Obviously, my least favorite was Piglet. Did not enjoy that book. Wasn't for me. Could be for somebody else. Anywho, if you're a fan of videos where I talk about multiple books I am reading or have read, the next video coming up will be about that. So stick around, check it out. And if you enjoyed hanging out today, hit that subscribe button, come back, see me again, and we'll talk about more bookish things and weird stuff.